Well, hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Cycle Podcast. Today we have a unique and new style of episode because I have a co-host today. And you've heard her here before. You heard her tell her story, and then she co-hosted with me when we talked about holiday tips. So I have Elva from Ireland here today. Hello, Elva.
Hello, everybody. Hello again.
And we have our guest who's going to tell her journey today. Kris, thank you so much for being here. Welcome. Why don't you start off by just telling us a little bit about yourself?
Okay. Well, I'm Kris. I'm from Manchester in England. My pronouns are she, her. I'm at university at the moment. I'm studying child and adolescent mental health and wellbeing, which is a mouthful. I love baking, origami. I love origami. Yeah.
Excellent.
Origami. So fun. Okay.
Yeah, I tried to take up cross stitch over Christmas and I didn't even get 4 stitches in. So that's impressive. And that takes patience, Kris. I'm very impressed. But I'm pretty good at baking and eating the resulting baking. So that's good.
Definitely the eating part.
Yeah.
And we're recording this in January, but how are things? Are school open, Kris, at the university? Are you going to class or is everything virtual?
Everything's virtual now. At the beginning, it was mostly virtual, but with 2 face-to-face sessions a week. But now it's all online.
Okay.
Wow. Big changes.
Yeah, it sucks.
It sucks. I know that. I think that's the feedback you hear everyone saying. We all when life was normal, we'd love a week or a day off. When it's actually taken from you, it's quite different. Okay. Okay, so thank you. So I guess it's a question that Melissa usually kicks off with, but it's a great question. I suppose the first thing to ask is, do you remember your first period? Because it's kind of usually a good point for us to start on. Do you remember where it was? Maybe just give us a bit of a bit of background about what was it like? Was it really painful? What was really memorable? And kind of those early days when your cycle started. What age were you, for example?
I was 11 and it was awful. I came on a few days before I told my mum. I didn't know what was going on because I went to a Catholic school. That was never explained to us. All that was definitely avoided. So I thought I was dying. I went down to my mum crying, like, "Oh my God, I'm bleeding. I don't know what's going on." She just laughed at me and explained it. Yeah, it was very heavy, very painful. I remember it lasted 2 weeks.
Wow.
Of just constant heavy flow. It was horrible.
And so that was at 11. So you're in middle school when that happened.
Here and then it's primary school.
Primary school. This is why I need Elva here. She's my translator, just so everybody knows.
Yeah. But again, like it's quite so primary school, so still very young years, and still that attitude to like more general education. Like there was no separate classes on science, for example. You hadn't got into like the human body, nothing on that yet. So yeah.
No, even when we got into high school, it was very basic, like sex ed and everything, very basic. So we're Catholic, it was a bit taboo. So
yeah. So after that first, initial period and it was painful and heavy, did it continue on like that over the next several years?
Yeah. I was always very regular, always like 28 days, always lasted a week or more, but it just stayed the same for a while. And then when I was in high school, it started getting worse. At that point, I did have an eating disorder, so I was already quite weak. So I think I had an iron deficiency as well. So I would just get really dizzy. Sometimes wouldn't be able to make it up the stairs at school. It's horrible.
And so do you remember much, and obviously we've kind of moved up where you're kind of high school, kind of nearing the end of your teens. Was there anything else apart from just really heavy, painful, any other symptoms that now that you know a bit more about endo, anything that when you kind of look back, you think, oh, that might have been to do with it? Any of those other symptoms that you've read about or you've heard about, or was it just very heavy bleeding?
I did used to always have stomach issues as a kid. Like I'd always complain about having like had my stomach hurting or my abdomen hurting. And I always had kind of like growing pains, kind of like that, which I still get now, even though I've definitely stopped growing. But like I wouldn't even have
So
a
kind of
growth
like
spurt.
joint
It was
pain.
always like, yeah,
kind of bones and kind of stretching pain. They're painful. Yeah, growing pain.
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, that was all around 13. And then when I was about 14 is when I finally went to my doctor about it, and it was the usual, oh, it's normal, it'll settle down. Some girls just have this, and I was like, oh, great, can't wait.
Yeah, so that was my next question. So yeah, you were told it was normal. You went to the doctor. Yep. Do you remember anyone in your family ever having, or even if you talked to your mom or anyone else in your family that may have had similar symptoms and were like, yeah, I went through this too, it's normal?
Yeah, my mum's have always been fine until I started mine. Mine sort of affected hers a little bit. But my dad's side of the family, definitely. My grandma has it quite bad. She's in menopause now, but she was telling me the other day how after she had her last kid, she would like be doubled over in pain, crying. She's been diagnosed with IBS as well. So,
but never officially diagnosed with endo, was she?
No, because she's nearly in her 60s, so wasn't really known about.
Right.
And her daughter, my auntie, definitely has it as well, based off her symptoms. And I think my great grandma would have as well. So my grandma's mum, because she said that she remembered her mum being the same, doubled over in pain, and she was like, "Oh, it's just a period. Like it's not that bad," until it started happening to her, and then she was sort of like, "Oh, I get it now."
Yeah, I think, and it's funny when you mention generations, because it's almost like, and I think this goes for a lot of kind of illnesses or conditions, is that we can't really, even kind of put our head towards that it existed back then. It's almost like it's something new, only since it was spoken about, and we'll never know, like, Melissa and myself and loads of other people probably have family members maybe that had it, maybe not, but there's only so far you can go back or what you can link those symptoms to. So, but it's good that you've done that bit of research and look back. I guess the only thing I'm wondering is so you're kind of you're going through the teens, you just kind of, we talked to so many people, haven't we? Like Melissa, you've talked to those, you just accept it. You do, you're told it's normal, and you just struggle on. Did it affect you kind of, say, work-wise, or that would have still been more school-age, to, how much of an impact did it have on life? Did you miss a lot of school? Did you miss a lot of events? Or did you kind of open up to friends about how bad it was? Or did you just struggle on,
Just struggled on. If I had it my way, I would have been at school. But my mum always forced me to go in.
Good mom.
Yeah.
Well.
Yeah.
When you went,
she was only
Oh, sorry, Elle.
No, I'm just saying, your poor mom. Like, I always feel when we're on here, the moms did their best. Your mom didn't know, and absolutely, she was. She thought the best thing is to be in school and just suck it up. So don't. Poor mom. Sorry, Melissa.
No. And Kris, when you went, did they offer birth control, or did they have any like suggestions that first time you went to the doctor, or did they just say, nope, this is normal, deal with it, take some, anti-inflammatory painkillers and send you on your way?
Yeah, just told me to take painkillers because they didn't want to give me any birth control at that age.
Yeah. Okay. And when, as Elva said, like missing events, you always went to school and everything, but was it like the first couple of days of your period, like it was a struggle to get through school?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it is. And it is hard as well when you kind of, you feel like you're the odd one out because everyone has told you it's normal and you're still going through something really hard. So say if we move forward a little bit, you've kind of reached the end of your teens, and you've been, I'm sure it came up with your doctor, your GP, your general, we call them GPs here, like your family doctor. Yep. Was there any other visits? Was there anything else investigated? When you came back with, say, the same thing, repeat, there was, no birth control, but they ever think about mentioning things like scans or anything like that?
Not until the middle of last year.
All right. Okay.
Yeah. Before that, when I was 16, I started having really bad knee and hip problems.
Okay.
So I would get this horrible pain from my hips shooting down to my knees. And at the same time, I have flat feet, which I now know. So that was making my knee sort of look like it was going inwards. So they were treating it all as one whole issue. So they couldn't figure out the cause of it. And then a few months after that happened, I was finally put on the pill. I say finally, it was horrible. It got rid of the flow. So like I barely bleed, but the pain was just a little bit worse. And the symptoms of it were horrible. I'd had really bad mood swings. I think I gained 45 pounds in 2 months when I was on that pill. Just horrible.
Yeah, it's funny, you know, and Melissa, I know you try not to be like, you know, the podcast doesn't hold kind of medical advice, but the thing to note is that it's just so different for everybody. I mean, the pill and all these hormonal things, they're treating a cycle, which again, that cycle is meant to be 28 days, but everybody's body's different. So it is hard, in fairness, for the docs and the pharmacists and everyone. No one's going to have the same reaction, but some people do have pretty big reactions to it, and it sounds like you did. I mean, it's, I suppose one thing that was good for you, I guess, is that it eased that flow, because that is a big impact on your life. But the fact that it wasn't hitting that pain, I mean, really, again, not knocking doctors, but that someone wasn't going, this isn't really doing everything for you, that it still took another few years for someone to finally think, right, it's kind of like putting the band-aid, it's just getting rid of heavy flow, which is good. Means you can get on with life, and maybe you weren't so iron deficient, but there's still something under there, you know, and fair play that you kind of kept, I know it took a long time, but that you kept pushing, and I know you still are now. I mean, mention your knee and hip, can I just ask what that pain felt like? Like, I'm sure you've heard of people talking about sciatic pain, but what did it feel like? Was it like a joint pain, or more like people often mention burning pain, which a lot of us have?
It was a mix. Sometimes it would just be this dull ache, but a lot of the time it was like a shooting pain going downwards.
Yeah.
And like I used to get this feeling, the other way I could describe it in my hips is like, you know, when you've got a tag on your clothing and it's like irritating the back of your neck, it felt like that, but inside on my hips, and nothing I did ever took it away, and it still happens now. So I think maybe it's a nerve or something being irritated, but it drives me insane.
Nerve pain is, and nerves are an amazing thing. I find it fascinating. Nerve pain and nerve sensations can be beyond irritating. And even when something isn't a pain like that, a sensation. I've heard a lot of people talk about restless legs, and that is infuriating at night to have that feeling. So it definitely sounds like nerve pain, and we know that, you know, a lot of nerve issues happen when you've got like that much inflammation, you know, down around your pelvis. It's like this.
Every time it happens as well, my hip, like the lower back hip area, swells up, so it's like it's spongy and it's annoying.
So I'm sorry to hear that, Kris. I understand that pain. I've had really bad hip pain for a really long time on the right side, and that's where a lot of like my concentrated pain was. So
yeah, mine was on the right side as well.
I do think there was like lesions or some inflammation or something pressing there. So we'll get to that part. So you're on this birth control, which, you know, gives you mood swings, you've gained weight, you're not feeling well. Did you switch, or did you kind of stick with it for a while? What happened after that? You know, you initially went on that birth control at 16.
I was on that one for 6 months, and then I'd had enough and asked to change. And I had a new GP at that point, and he gave me a different one, which took some of the pain away. I didn't have any side effects from it. I felt really good, but then they stopped making it. So he tried putting me on one that was similar, but it just made me feel ill. I'd get really headachy. I'd snap really easily. I just feel like myself, so I came off that one.
Yeah, and it's a common theme that I just happened to see. Elva, I don't remember if that happened with you, but I was on birth control after birth control, very similar to you, Kris, like where they were like testing this one, testing that one, but I never tolerated it well, any of them, or it would come off the market, or they would change the name, or they would reformulate it. And I never handled it well.
Yeah, for me, go on, Kris.
Go on. Sorry, go on.
I'm just saying, for me, the benefit never really outweighed kind of what didn't do enough for me, I guess. And again, I know I've told my story before, and that's you know, this is about you today, Kris, but it did the same thing for me. It made me more regular. I knew when my period would happen, and it was a bit less, but it didn't do anything else. And then like you kind of switch and you change. Every time you switch, that just puts, I guess, maybe your hormones into turmoil, or like that. But I also know some of my friends who, you know, don't have endo and they just have not tolerated hormones at all. So I think it's just one of those things that really works for you and they're amazing, or it doesn't. And I guess what we're kind of getting at is that it's that one-stop shop for a lot of people and doctors and clinicians. They just say, get someone on this, and if it works, great. But for me, it's like, but when it doesn't, what's next? And I think that's kind of the gap, right? You know, I mean, and pretty, like, is that where you're up to? Was that the position that it took them for the next few years? Is that you just struggled on again? Things were obviously then heavy again if it wasn't working for you and you weren't on something. Yeah. What kind of, I guess, brought you to the next step? What was the next step?
I was just going to say about birth control. My side of the family, no one can tolerate any kind of birth control or hormonal stuff. We all have really bad reactions from it. My auntie had the implant, you know, the one in your arm. That one didn't go well with her either. We're all also allergic to latex, so I think it's just the Irish genes being like, no, procreate, sorry.
You know, and I think, you know, what's really good is to keep that kind of, you know, you're mentioning such amazing stuff and I'm sure you're doing this, but keep that noted down, because anyone you're going to speak to over the next while, if you go in with that really, you know, that you're so certain about that, that's a family thing, genetic or not, that's a trait. You're not, it's not just you kind of bringing a family history into any discussion you're going to have with doctors is going to be really, because it starts them off with a view that, okay, clearly I'm probably not going to immediately go down hormonal route with Kris, you know. And again, you'll have to have those discussions, but it's a really good thing to go kind of almost go straight in the door with. That hormone view.
Yeah. After I went to the GP about my hip and knee pain, they referred me to another section, and they sent me for, I think it must have ended up being about 3 MRIs and an X-ray to see what was going on.
Wow.
One person said that I had a tilted pelvis. Another person said that was wrong. It was just a height difference. Then I still don't know which one it was. But after that, one of the MRIs showed a cyst. So when I was there, the person doing the MRIs pointed it out and was like, it looks like you've got a cyst, so maybe that could be messing with some nerves. I think they said it was 5 centimeters. And then when I went to go through the results of it, I didn't have the doctor that I was seeing. It was just some random doctor reading a report someone else had made, very basic, didn't even, just had a few still images. Nothing of a cyst on there. No mention of it at all.
So and this was...
Oh, sorry, go on.
No, just wondering, like, that, did they mention that this cyst, because you're talking about they were looking at, you know, pelvis and maybe more structural things. This was kind of down your pelvis. So, I mean, we'd be guessing kind of things like your ovary. That was kind of the way it was pointed out to you? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, it was. I can't remember if it was on my ovary or on my uterus, but I know it was like in between them somewhere. I think it might be on my uterus near my ovary.
They can be together, they could be in, out. The
I only had like a quick minute glance at it, so.
And the thing is as well, these scans are looking like a 3D view. It's very, it is sometimes hard, right, Melissa, for them to exactly tell you if that cyst is on an ovary or beside an ovary or wrapped around. So, you know, but clearly someone saw something, and then when you went to the follow-up, that person maybe was just looking more at that hip, you know, that was there.
So whoever went through the MRI results mustn't have spotted it or didn't think it was relevant. I think I pointed it out to them. I said that the MRI technician pointed out a cyst, and they went, well, there's nothing on here. It's probably just cyclical. I was like, what do you mean probably? Do you not want to check that?
And actually, they can go up and down. That happens with me. But so you never went back to did you go back to your GP with that and go get them to maybe look at it?
Not at that point, no.
Right,
I think
because
I mentioned it when I went about the next time for a different pill, and they said that there was nothing on the results about it, so they don't know anything about it and they can't really look into it. So
what happened next after the scan?
I had another one just to double check. Again, I've said nothing about cysts, but I really hate MRIs. I'm really claustrophobic, and I would just cry. I'm like, can you go get my mum, please? She had to sit there with me. Oh, they were horrible. After that, they gave me a month or two, I think, just to see if my symptoms changed. And I saw another doctor who I went through all the symptoms, and he said, sounds to me like you just need to lose some weight.
Was this a GP,
Kris? No, this was I can't remember the name of the department, but this was like the one that we're looking at sort of the structural,
like your hip, back to this hip pain thing. Okay.
Yeah. So he just said, sounds to me like you just need to lose some weight, you're just too inactive. This was after me saying that I was recovering from an eating disorder, and I don't like exercising because that was a big struggle for me, was being addicted to it. So I didn't want to fall back into that because I didn't feel like I was at that stage in my recovery where it'd be safe. And he went, well, just sounds like you need to go lose some weight, and then that might stop some knee pain. I'll refer you to physio. Right, thanks. Gave me an appointment for 6 months in advance. Give me a reminder about it, so I completely forgot. And then they never followed up.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah, sucks.
Yeah.
But when I finally went to physio, that's when I found out about my flat feet. And I've only just got that sorted a few months ago. That was 2018, maybe, when I got referred. And he said that I had a bit of hypermobility in one leg and flat feet, but none of that should be causing any, like, the pain I'm having.
Good. So someone's finally kind of going, there's something else.
Yeah, but then no one else followed it up. It was just sort of, this shouldn't be happening. Oh well.
Right.
Don't know
so
what
this
it
was
is.
This was like 2018, right, Kris?
Yep.
Yeah. And at this point, like, you still have never heard the word endometriosis, and you're just thinking all of these things might just be like separate health concerns, issues, like, oh, I might have a hip issue or this or that. I have a heavy period, but there's no way. I think this is one of the things, is it's so hard to correlate these things because there's like, it just wouldn't seem like it would be the same cause, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So what happened after 2018? You figured out the flat feet, and he told you, which was great. Like Elva said, it was great that he told you, like, this shouldn't be causing that. What happened after that?
Well, when I first went about my knee and hip issues, I was put on codeine and paracetamol, which was very, very strong. And I was studying in college at that point, and I was feeling everything because I was just like zombied out. My school was not supportive with it at all. They were not helpful. Sort of had the attitude of like me using it as an excuse. I feel like at that point it felt like it was just like one thing after another with me. But when I was 18, went on another pill, came off that after a week, hated it. Because again, just made me feel ill. And a few months later, they took me off codeine and paracetamol because I'd been on it too long with no replacement, nothing. I called up to get it one time and they said, sorry, no, and just took me off it. And that's when I realised how bad my periods had actually been getting, because at that point I was on codeine all the time. I was taking it regularly throughout the day so I wouldn't be able to feel the pain, because it was so debilitating that I couldn't go for walks with my family anymore. I couldn't go out with friends, couldn't go shopping. I just sort of stayed home in bed all the time, which
again at this point
nice.
No, plenty of people have been there, and you feel like sometimes people are looking like saying that, lose weight or not even that, but get up, get out, come for a walk, and it's so hard because of course you want to. Anything else had presented at that point? Anything else around that cycle time? Like, I guess the question I'm asking is, was your gut telling you yet that this was the root of this was something to do with, a menstrual cycle or those organs, your pelvis?
Not at that point. I think it was mainly once lockdown started. But before that, I remember I had mock exams in school, which is like, oh, sorry, hit my foot then. In the UK, we have A levels when you're like 17, 18, which is the last exams you do before going to university, if you choose to.
I guess they're not like your SATs, but it'd be the equivalent. It's the last exam before you then move into college. And college just is kind of like the last year or two of school, Melissa.
Yeah, but with that is where you choose like maybe 3 topics.
Yeah.
3 subjects to do. So I chose biology, chemistry, psychology, and I also did a lower qualification in maths.
So you're still quite kind of day-to-day school, like you're still under, quite day-to-day school routine, and it's being impacted like that. And
yeah,
as you say,
like I think it's like 9 till 3 every weekday. I never had a day off.
Yeah.
But after I came off codeine, all my grades went up, except for chemistry. I hate chemistry. But biology, I was getting U's, which is like hard fail, and that went from a U to a C in a month. And then a month after that, we had mock exams, and I was ill for that week, so I had to do mine the week after. I remember specifically waiting for about half an hour for one of my teachers to show up with my exam, and she never did. I spent the whole morning trying to find her and bring it, and then by the time another teacher came with it, it was time for my next lesson, and I was like, look, I can't miss this lesson. I've been off for a few weeks. I need to catch up on chemistry. I'm really bad at it as it is, so I need to like get on it. So then I agreed to do it the next day, and I went in and my period had come early, and it's the first time I had a period without codeine. Oh God, it was horrible. I was doubled over. I had to bring a hot water bottle with me to college. I had like a few leftover codeine from when I had it. I had to take that, and I remember crying, pleading with my head of year to just let me do it the week after the weekend. And he pulled me into his office and sat me down and said, look, if you've not revised enough, just admit it. You don't need to like come up with an excuse just because you've not revised enough, because you're not going to do well. Yeah, so I just sat there crying, and then I went to my teacher and explained. I was like, he told me that either I take it or get a 0. And if it was the real ones, they won't be able to make any accommodations, so they're not going to for the mocks. And I went to the teacher, I thought, look, I'm not going to do well in this. I can't think. I was still like doubled over in pain. So they forced me to do it. I ended up having to sit there, curled up in a ball with a hot water bowl, crying, and still got a B. So, yeah.
But I think that's,
God, I hated him.
Kris, you bring up just such a good point about the lack of awareness with endo. I mean, just they would never say that to somebody who had a broken, bleeding arm. They would never, but they can't see it. There's a lack of awareness around this condition. And instead of, having empathy and being empathetic, the assumption is that you didn't study enough or that you weren't prepared for that mock exam. And that's just, really one of the reasons why I think just the awareness is so very important. I just wanted to point out that it really tugs at my heart, because I remember being in school and someone accused me in high school of being a drug addict because I was in so much pain. I was sweating.
Yeah, I remember from one of your first episodes.
Yeah, laying on the floor. And so it's just being empathetic around what's going on with people. But my other question for you is, with the codeine, when you came off of it, were you in pain just around your cycle, or was your pain now starting to be a day? Like, were you having pelvic or any other hip or all of, that kind of area? Did that move into daily, or was it still just around your cycle?
Well, after I had my physio, it eased off a little bit because I was building some strength back up and had some shoes with better support. So it wasn't hurting as bad, but then whenever it was my period, I would not be able to walk. I'd be in so much pain. So it did, at that time, it was cyclical. Like, it was whenever I was due on and on. But I think it was a month after that was when we went into lockdown, and about a week in, I think I was ovulating. I just bloated up and was in so much pain. I'd never had pain around ovulation. So I was a bit like, what's going on? Like, why is it hurting? I shouldn't be cramping up yet. And that wasn't so, like, it was painful, but compared to what in the last few months, it was nothing. So then I called my GP when I was due on, because it was horrible, and he gave me a pill. I went on it, and straight away it was horrible. So then I called up again, spoke to a different GP, and he's the one who suggested endometriosis finally. He took me off the pill I was on and gave me one that was just progesterone, because he knew that it was estrogen based, which was amazing, and referred me.
And when was that, Kris? That was like a couple months ago. What
March.
March
That's
of
March.
2020.
A year ago.
I know.
And I guess that's so, I mean, this is so well done to that GP. And I think we've spoken about this before, Melissa, about how when you live in the UK, your GP is kind of fixed to where you live. So if you move about, your GP has to change. But then also GPs are in fairly large practices and they have huge catchment areas. And like that, you're generally registered to one, right, Kris? But sometimes that kind of shifts or changes, or depending on kind of, you know, if you ring and you're just in dire need, they're just going to throw you in with a GP. Fantastic, because you will get to see someone, but it's not the same person. And I know they have your notes, but they're just going to look at what they say. So finally, there's this person who has some background. Sometimes I think it's maybe even in their personal life, they have a person who has it or knows about it. They've kind of at least thought, which was great, maybe not any old pill is going to work with this. Even if it wasn't endometriosis, something that is really quite a, you know, cyclical or, you know, related to a menstrual cycle, that not all pills work. So that's brilliant. And they mentioned about referral to, obviously, was it to a gynecologist? This is the first mention you've heard of. I mean, did you even, I don't mean to sound condescending, but did you know what a gynecologist was and what they do? Because loads of people don't.
Yeah, I forgot to mention earlier, I do have an auntie that's not related to me by blood that's been diagnosed with endometriosis. So I knew kind of what it was, but it was like, I remember someone telling me she had it, had a quick Google, I was like, oh, okay, went about my day, never really thought about it again. But with my GP, it is quite, like this GP surgery, it is quite like overpopulated, I guess. There's a lot of people.
Yeah,
because it is a good surgery that I've seen them. So most of the time when I went, it would be a different person every time. The first few times was someone I've been seeing since I was born, so he knew me quite well. And then he left. I think he retired. And then I saw someone that's supposed to be the best, which is the one who gave me the pill before this. Because I'd spoken to him a few months before about getting referred to be diagnosed with autism, because that was something that was missed during my childhood as well. So I think mine just automatically went to him because he was the last person I saw. And then he wasn't available, which is why I saw this GP, which in hindsight was a bit of a lifesaver.
Yeah, just...
After he suggested that, did you then start Googling it again and start to think, oh my goodness, and it all started making sense?
Mm-hmm. He was really, really thorough with going through everything. And around that time is when my bowels started, like around my period as well. I remember I still do get quite constipated a few days before I come on, and then kind of like diarrhea when I'm actually on, which isn't quite fun.
No, but it's quite common. That's quite and it's interesting you mentioned. So were you taking the progesterone only pill all the way through? Are you still taking that, or is that?
No, I'll get to that.
Didn't work again. Okay, yeah, no,
but we went through everything, and I had a period tracking app, so luckily I had everything written down, how long I'd been feeling everything. And he said to me that he was quite blunt about it, to be honest, but I'd rather it was blunt and actually tell me what was going on instead of sort of skipping over it. But he explained what it was. He explained that the only way to diagnose it is a laparoscopy. And he sent me for an ultrasound. He said that most of the time it doesn't show anything, but that doesn't suggest that it's not endometriosis. So he was very well versed in it for someone that's just a GP.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, some GPs they'll all have done in their time some obstetrics and gynecology, and I think some people just latch on to their interests, but it sounds like he had picked up on some cues, and he was definitely, or it could just be, Kris, that he has seen a lot of patients and they, after referral, ended up, he's seen it come back full circle, and he'd seen a lot of diagnosis of something like endometriosis. So he's kind of, he's learned from, but it sounds like he's a good guy to suddenly, have on your side. So where are we at this stage? You've kind of had this referral, and I get it. We've all been here through this year. You had a referral that essentially went in, and it's just gone on hold with everything with COVID.
That was for an ultrasound, and I finally got that in September. But when I went on that pill, he told me to take it continuously so I wouldn't have a period. And that was when everything just got a lot worse. Instead of it being when I was due on and sometimes, obviously, it was all the time except for the week after my period. So I was just constant pain. Even then, it was still like a dull ache. It was always there.
And how did your bowels react? You mentioned that your bowel has started to be impacted.
Completely random. Also bloated almost all the time, which before then never really, it would only happen sometimes when I was on, but constantly just going up and down. And it also made me gain a lot of weight again. But then a few months after that, my auntie died, and I remember around that time, I think it's the day of the funeral actually, I woke up in pain, and from then on I've had a single day without pain. So I don't know if it was the stress from it all just made something flare up, or if it's just coincidental, but I remember that day it's just all gone to the dogs, really.
So I'm so sorry.
I know, I'm so sorry, Kris. It's been tough year. So
it's been a rough year.
Yeah. So from March, you go on the progesterone only pill, and then you aren't able to get this ultrasound because of COVID, I'm assuming. And then you were able to receive it in September, and at this point you're in daily pain.
Yeah. When would it have been? I think around June. I contacted them because I'd run out of codeine and needed the pill. I needed a fresh packet of the pill because I'd used them all up. And around that time when I had the period, because I'd taken it continuously for 3 months, and it was horrible. It was not light at all. I was like, I thought pills were supposed to make it lighter. What is going on? So I think it just all built up over those 3 months and was like, right, go. It was hard. But around the time, I couldn't even go for a walk, without being sick. Or I remember one time my girlfriend suggested we go for a walk, because I hadn't been out the house in weeks, so I was feeling kind of down because I hadn't been outside at all. And went really slow, and then all of a sudden, it just clicked. I was doubled over, gagging everywhere, just kept going dark. So I had to go sit down and call my mum to come get us. I couldn't go to the shops without being sick afterwards. So it was very rough.
I think it sounds, again, none of us are doctors or medics, but it sounds like, and I guess this happened to me, I think I just reached this build up, this incredible amount of this inflammation, which for whatever reason is going on inside, had just reached a threshold. And I don't think sometimes it's even about kind of whether, is something new happening? It's just a total build up in your system. And then I get, you mentioned something a minute ago. Absolutely. When we go through trauma or grief, I'm not saying the pain isn't there, it is, but I do believe we feel pain more. And something, again, you may or may not have read about as well, is that the longer you feel pain, the more those nerves are, they're firing off. So again, it's not that you're not feeling it, it's not real, but your body is literally feeling more pain, because it's like, how much pressure can you put on a system? And, I think it's really good, actually. I think I applaud you that you've reached that point where you're able to say, this is kind of gotten out of hand and it's gotten worse, because again, you're going to bring that to whoever you're going to speak to get these next steps. You're not just complaining, there's something really wrong, and you just want that help to find out what it is. you know.
Mm-hmm.
Did the
Around that time
ultrasound?
is, oh, sorry.
Go ahead. No, go ahead, Kris.
Around that time is when I started getting like actual pain in my vagina rather than like abdomen cramping. So I'd get like shooting pains up it. I used to describe it as it felt like someone was shoving a knife into me.
Yep.
I always have my pains usually on my left, sort of like central, but to the left, unless I'm due on or on. In that case, it's just everywhere. But sometimes it's a dull ache. Sometimes it feels like I always describe it as being stabbed with a hot knife. Because it burns, and I always have like a lot of heat radiating from my abdomen as well. But yeah, I started getting a lot of pain there as well, which was something new. I'd never had that before. And still getting shooting pains on my leg. It started going to both legs actually, but it wasn't just like to my knees, it was in the inside of my thighs as well. So more sciatica.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for describing those, because a lot of people who are listening.
Yeah, I realized I hadn't.
No. It's so helpful to hear that, because a lot of people who are questioning if they may have endometriosis, a lot of times they listen to the podcast, and those types of like descriptions of pain or symptoms is very, very helpful for people to hear, because like I said, sometimes you just don't correlate certain pains. So what happened with the ultrasound? What did they find?
Well, they just did a normal ultrasound and they couldn't see anything. I remember I had to drink a lot of water for it.
Yes.
And then it was pressing against my uterus. So I was just like, please hurry up and get it done. And then I went and they couldn't see it. They couldn't see my uterus. And they were like, sorry, you got to drink more water. I was like, oh, please no. So I had to down a bunch more. And then they could finally see it. Couldn't see anything. But before I drank the water, they offered to give me a transvaginal ultrasound. Mm-hmm. And then they were prepping for it. And then one of them asked me if I was still a virgin, which I am. And then they were like, oh, sorry, we can't do it. I was like, oh, for God's sake. I was like, I'm giving you my consent, though. I don't understand why you can't just like.
I don't know. You totally do not. You don't have to talk about this, but I guess I have a question about that. And every country is different, and every system is different. So you understood the implication of the transvaginal is like that narrow probe, and it is inserted into your vagina, and it does. I mean, again, endo isn't always visible, but it is a more high definition. It just sees more, right? We all know that. The science behind it, we don't need to know. You actually said to them you're giving consent, but they still wouldn't go ahead with the transvaginal?
Yep, I said, I really don't mind. And they said, no, sorry, it's our policy, and refused. I was like, oh.
Okay, that's really interesting. And again,
so
that's
I
really
know next
interesting
time
for
to
people
just
to
say
know.
I'm not a virgin, and maybe then they'll do it.
Well, and honestly, every time I've had one of those, I probably say over 1,000 of those in my lifetime. The only thing they've ever showed was a cyst. Like, so, I mean, I think you got great news today. So now, that was September, and the past couple months, what's been happening from September until January now?
Well, when I asked for the pill again around June, July, my GP had left without telling me. No one told me. So I left a message, because with mine, you can do it online and just send, like, text them. But the nurse called me, okayed everything, and then said that they just had to talk to a doctor because they can't prescribe anything without a doctor's consent first. So she did that, and then no one called me back. I just got a text message saying, I'm not going to give you codeine again. Gave me the pill I was put on beforehand, like the one that I had before, the progesterone only pill. And they gave me tranexamic acid, which does nothing for the pain. That just helps blood clot. So the flow wouldn't be as heavy. And my whole point, I spoke to the nurse because they have to go through like all the normal questions like, oh, are you having any side effects from the pill? How are you feeling? And she asked me about the pain and the flow. I said, flow, not great, but not a big issue. The main is the pain. So I don't understand why they heard that and thought, oh, I know, I'll take the painkillers away and just give a tranexamic acid. It doesn't make any sense. And I never had like a phone call talking about it, asking if I was okay with that. It just got sent to me.
Okay, it's hard. So we're kind of up to now again.
Kind of, there's still more, surprisingly.
That's okay.
Yeah,
but
go
ahead.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
I moved to university in late September. So had to be more self-sufficient and independent, which was really hard considering I was in so much pain. Before that, I had to beg to be put back on codeine. I was like, look, I can't function. I can't live without this because I'm crippled over in pain. I told them that I only take it on days where I have to go out or I really can't deal with it. So after that ultrasound, I spoke to another GP, this time a woman. I messaged them and said, my ultrasound came back as normal. Where do we go from here? She called me and again went through absolutely everything she could think of about like my history with the pill, all my symptoms, everything with my bowel, and agreed that it most likely is endometriosis. So she agreed to refer me to a gynecologist. She gave me codeine again. She also gave me mefenamic acid, which is another painkiller, because she said I could take tranexamic acid for the few first days of my period to help the flow, and then take that, so I'm not having to rely on codeine all the time, which is brilliant. It's the first time I felt like completely listened to. Wow. And I always message her if I need anything. She actually listens, and yeah, she's brilliant.
That's wonderful. Okay, so now what's going on?
Well, when I moved to university, it just started getting worse. So the everyday pain just started getting more to the level of when I was on my period. And then my first period when I was there, I think it's the worst I've ever had. It only lasted 3 days, but the first day I couldn't get out of bed. I was screaming in pain. And we ended up having to call 111, which is kind of like a queue, like they'll ask you about everything and they'll suggest what to do next, like if to call like for an ambulance or if to just talk to your GP. So I did that, and they said they would send over an ambulance to come check me over and take me to the hospital if needed. And I got a call, I think it must have been about 4 hours later, saying, like, going through everything again, and the one woman talking to me said, oh, it doesn't sound life-threatening, so we're not going to send anyone. We'll just get some GP to call you. So someone I've never spoken to, not from my GP surgery, somewhere from like the area of my university. And he tried giving me Proxin, which I was given when I was about 17, and it makes me feel so ill. I feel like I'm going to be sick all the time, constipation, headachy. And I said, I can't take that. I've already got all these painkillers. That won't help. It'll just make me feel more ill. And he went, well, what do you want me to do about it then? I was like, oh, I don't know, maybe your job, maybe actually help. So I said, you know what, I'll just take what I've got, and hung up on him. I was like, bye, not dealing with you. And then
this is during a lockdown still, right? So
yeah, this was October, maybe November. November.
Yeah, okay.
And then the day after, my flow stopped completely. And I was really confused. I was like, I've only been on one day. What's going on? And then I sat there and I felt like plugged up, like something was blocking it. So I went to the toilet and I had the biggest, this was the first time I took tranexamic acid as well, but I had the biggest blood clot I've ever seen. I think it looked like a jellyfish. It was like 20 centimeters. I looked at it, I was like, that came out of me? What is that? I was so freaked out. I was like, never taking tranexamic acid again. But and then even like that was just what like went to the toilet, because I remember wiping, and even then there was like one like this long, and I was like, how did that just come out?
I know.
But it's horrible, because I was on the toilet and then it just sort of made like a bloop sound. I was like, I know that did not, please tell me that did not just come out of me. What was that? I know I didn't just shit. What is going on?
You know what? Sometimes you just gotta laugh. I know it's like yes. Something we don't talk about a lot on actually the cycle is the blood clots. And man, I used to get them really bad. But
yeah, I've always had them, but they've always been like tiny ones,
like a coin or something. Yeah,
but nothing that big.
Recently, it's just been getting bigger. Even this period, I've been having them quite a lot.
That's kind of common. I didn't really. I definitely experienced blood clots, but I'd never had like almost like just the entire uterine lining just comes in one go. But I have a friend who actually had endometriosis, and again, just from sharing, she experienced that, where she gets exactly, and she feels this pelvic pressure and this buildup.
Yeah.
And actually for her, and again, you know, we can be open on this podcast, sometimes if she has intercourse, it would initiate that, and that has been terrifying for her. And you know, whoever she was with the first time it happened, because that poor person thought they were like, I don't know what they thought they'd done to her, but like that, it's obviously, and again, I can't remember what she's taking, but I think something she's taking is obviously, you know, causing that kind of clotting process and not allowing a flow to happen.
Right.
And again, now her gynecologist has explained that's what happened to her, and at the moment she knows it's normal for her, and she just has to, she's not going to die, because again, it's not like you're using vital blood loss, but when it happens, my God,
it's very scary.
Looking back, it's definitely like contraction pains. I think my body was just trying to force it out,
trying to get rid of it.
Yeah.
So we're still through lockdown. You've had your ultrasound. You've now got another GP again who seems like knowledgeable, and they know they really want to get you to see a gynecologist. So this is where then there's been another hold because of COVID and everything that's going on. But you've got some good news, like you know, this is happening.
Finally got my referral letter today for the 12th of February. So that's just the initial one to discuss my symptoms, and hopefully get to planning a laparoscopy. I really hope so. But since I think it was actually Christmas Day, it's flared up again, and it's not really settled since. Today's the first not so bad bit. Like, I've been able to bake and clean up for the first time in weeks, which has been nice. But even a few days ago, I was having really bad blood clots again.
Are you still using the app, like the cycle tracking app, and keeping all these symptoms? You mentioned that before. Okay.
I've changed apps though. At first I was using one called Flow, and now I use one called Flutter, which is designed for people with endometriosis. And that is brilliant, because it really just go through everything and rating the pain. It's great.
Yeah, I've heard of Flutter. I've heard very positive things about it. And now that we've kind of gotten you here, and I think we'll have you back on again too, Kris, once you actually, you know, get to go to the gyno, and see what happens from there, and hopefully get your laparoscopy. But any, you know, advice for people who are listening? How old are you right now?
19.
Yeah, so you're 19, and you know, you're at university, and this is supposed to be like, obviously without COVID, but like going out and having fun and doing all these things. I mean, any advice for anybody who's listening? Either, I mean, there could be parents listening to people who, you know, are in high school, or, you know, 19 your age, or people that are your peer age. Any thoughts or advice that you want to share with them that's kind of helped you?
I'd say to just make sure you track everything, especially if you're noticing that you're having symptoms that your friends or family don't really have. Make sure you track it all. Don't let doctors tell you that it's normal. If you know it's not normal and you're struggling, you know, just trust yourself. Because the amount of times I thought, oh well, maybe it's just in my head. Maybe I just need to lose some weight. But it's not that. You know that. You've got to push through it. I'd as well try, I know you've spoken about it a lot on the podcast, but try different diets and see if there's any foods that make it flare up. For me, I've tried. Sometimes it's just, if I'm having a bad day, eating anything just makes me swell and cramp.
Yeah.
But I know for some people, it could be something that's making it flare up. Alcohol has started making it flare up for me, which, you know, at 19, not great.
See me and Melissa nodding in the background here. You know, and neither of us, when we discuss are what you call anything like heavy drinkers, but there's definitely been times where I don't think really that a lot of people clearly got maybe allergies. I think, like I was saying earlier on, we get to this threshold where there's so much information, and just substances, or, you know, foods, alcohol, things like that, you know, they just kick in and suddenly you can't tolerate them anymore. But what I would say is cling on to the hope.
I just remembered. few months into being on the pill, my GP contacted me to see how I was getting along with it. I said, well, now my bowel symptoms are just everywhere. My pain isn't cyclical, it's just random now. And he told me that it's probably IBS and just prescribed me some medication for that. Didn't work, didn't help.
Of course.
Yeah.
So common. Well, we really appreciate you coming on and sharing this part of your journey, Kris, so much. And if there's anything else you want to add before we wrap up, please let us know. And thank you for sharing. And we'll definitely follow up with you, in the next couple months to see how things are going.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I just figured as well, like, even if it's not endo, at least then if I do get diagnosed with something else, that can be put out there. So if someone is trying to fight for getting an endometriosis diagnosis and it doesn't end up being that, at least they've got an idea of what it could be. But probably is at this point.
Yeah, and
much else.
I do want to mention, I do feel like that's a very common fear that I hear from a lot of people who I talk to, is that they will be waiting to get this, diagnostic surgery. And they're always just so afraid that it's not going to be anything. And I think that's a normal anxiety. I'm pretty sure I had it too, but as I talk about all the time, and everybody hears me say this, you just got to trust your gut. And usually your gut never sets you away. It knows that something's wrong. And just like your advice, Kris, like you said, trust yourself, trust your gut, and keep fighting. All right.
Yeah,
Elva.
I think that's definitely like more so with me, because I've had so many x-rays and MRIs, they've all come back with nothing and completely normal. So even my ultrasound, they were like, nothing, looks perfectly healthy. I was like, well, it's not, I could tell you that. So I think that is definitely a big fear of mine, but I'm just trying to stay positive, which is a bit hard. I mean, I think how many months? It's taken me about like 6 months for this referral, so hopefully things start getting sped up a little bit now. The vaccines are getting handed out here.
Yeah, and I think, I think it's important to, I'm not saying don't expect a miracle, but don't feel disheartened if, again, there's another wait after this. Just keep thinking that you're on the next step. You're getting there. And, people are waiting for loads of stuff this year. Go in with as much information as you can. Go in with that very a positive attitude about this, that I have to tell you I feel awful, but I'm positive because I fixed myself. I'm not just here to complain. And just keep thinking that you're on the right path. We've messaged a little bit about this. I'm just like, I keep saying to you, just hang on, because I really think, endo or not, they're going to hopefully look inside your pelvis, and at that point they're going to find something maybe that will point towards it. But we probably all think endo, right? But we're not doctors. But just hang in there. You're being really brave. You've been, sharing your story, because you're still really young. Gosh, you're 19. And there's another thing. Keep pushing, because you're at an age where this is still only, your cycle was 11. I know it's 8 years, but there's people, I was 36 last year when I was diagnosed. And again, it affects everyone differently, but, push, Kris, because, you're still young enough to get this sorted. And if they find the right thing, you could look at a plan, and really get your life back, back on track the way you want it to be. So well done.
Yeah.
I'm glad that I've got the people in my life that I do, like my girlfriend and my best. I don't think I would have been able to get through all this without them. So shout out to you guys.
Shout out to everybody's support network.
Yes, for sure. And I agree, Elva and Kris, you are, being 19, early diagnosis is brilliant, as you both would say from across the pond, but it can help you set a path where, you can get past this and feel very good in the future. So there's a lot of hope. Elva, thank you for co-hosting. Kris, thank you so much for sharing your story. I appreciate you both so much. I hope everybody is feeling well, and thank you for tuning in.